بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين، أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. I commend in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as in salutations of prayers and peace upon the finality of prophets and messengers, Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, upon his family, his companions, and all who follow him in righteousness until the day of judgment. Indeed, the best speech is the book of Allah, the Quran, and the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So, beloved brothers and sisters, alhamdulillah, we apologize. I apologize that last week we did not have a session. بقدر الله وما شاء فعل, some things came up and, that were out of our control, inshallah ta'ala. So, alhamdulillah, we are continuing on today with lesson 5, inshallah. And we are going to be addressing in lesson 5 today the rights of the man, inshallah ta'ala. And before we begin, when we say the rights of the man, sometimes, we want to mention that we did address the rights of the women already in a previous class. So inshallah ta'ala, it's only fair that now we talk about the rights of the man and begin to talk about what those rights are, inshallah ta'ala. But we, inshallah, before mentioning that, I want to preface today's discussion with an important narration. And this narration is going to allow us to know that even though the husband has rights over his wife, that those rights that the husband has over his wife are not rights that necessarily should make him an oppressor, are not rights that should make him a tyrant, right? Are not rights that should allow him to treat his wife as someone who is a slave, who is simply there to serve him and be there at his every beck and call and need, right? And this hadith comes in the book of Al-Bukhari, and it is narrated on Al-Aswad. قال سألت عائشة رضي الله عنها ما كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يصنع في أهلي. So Aswad, he says, I came to Aisha radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I asked her, what did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam do at home? قالت عائشة رضي الله عنها, Aisha replied back to Al-Aswad, saying, كان في مهنة أهله. He said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to keep himself busy serving his family, subhanallah. And he says, حضرت الصلاة قام فإذا حضرت الصلاة قام إلى الصلاة. And he says, and when it was the time for prayer came in, that he would get up and he would go out for prayer, inshallah ta'ala, right? Meaning that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if it was outside of the time of prayer, that he would be in the service of his family. And there are other narrations that she said, radiallahu anha, that he would basically sew his own shoes, he would wash his own clothes, he would mend his clothes, right? He would be, he would help cleaning the house. He would be in the service of his family for whatever it was that they needed, that he would be someone who would help out in the home. And we've been talking about filling the love tank and making sure that, we are every day working on the relationship that we have with one another, inshallah ta'ala, right? And it's not about the man, doing the Al Bundy where he sits on the couch and he just has the remote in hand, inshallah ta'ala, and the wife serves him at every beck and call and is like, can you get me this and can you get me that and you can give me this, and he just kicks his feet up and he's relaxing. That would be nice, but that's not the way it should be, brothers, inshallah ta'ala, right? And we're looking at the best of examples. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Allah says about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. Right? He says Allah about the Messenger of Allah, in the Messenger of Allah, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have the best example. So now if the man, he wants to follow the best example and he wants to be the best and he wants to, mashallah, be at that high standard, right? When it comes to recognizing those great husbands, then he has to look at what the Prophet ﷺ did and how he lived his life, inshallah ta'ala, because Allah is telling us to look at him because in him you have the best example, inshallah ta'ala. And here we are seeing, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that mashallah, he would be in the service of his family, right? So your rights, brothers, doesn't mean that now you just sit back and chill and lamp, all right? That you live it up all good and your wife is serving you hand and feet, rubbing your toes, right? Subhanallah, massaging your back, inshallah ta'ala. You can get that, inshallah ta'ala, if your wife, mashallah, desires to be from those who want to give that to you, inshallah ta'ala, right? But that also you are in service of your family as well, right? So we see that machista attitude, right? For my Latino brothers and sisters, they understand this. The machista attitude is not something beneficial to the home of the believers. Being given or being a person that is given authority as a man does not mean again that he doesn't help, doesn't assist, and that love is absent in that home, right? Because this is not a sign of love. You sitting on the couch and just asking and calling and telling and giving out commands and orders, right, is not a sign that you love your spouse. A sign that you love your spouse is that you get up and you help her, inshallah ta'ala, and that you see what's needed, inshallah ta'ala, and you add, right? So giving authority and being in service to your family and assisting them is yet a further demonstration of male strength, right? And I think I have to say that again, right? Male strength is being in service of your family, helping out in the home, inshallah ta'ala. Male strength and male dominance isn't sitting on the couch and expecting that your wife does everything for you, okay? Or, that she is supposed to do everything for you and that you're not supposed to do anything except go out and earn a living and come home and be served hand and foot. But mashallah, a sign of male dominance, male strength is that you are like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam who helped out in the house, right? Strong men help. Strong men serve. Strong men are allowed to cry as well. We have emotions, we have feelings, right? We get hurt, right? Strong men, all right, demonstrate these emotions, inshallah ta'ala. They demonstrate their love, their care, right? And they demonstrate that outside of the responsibility of financially providing for the home, that mashallah, they are also providing service for that home as well, inshallah ta'ala. And we see that all of this can be found in the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was the strongest and the best of men to ever walk the face of the earth. And remember that strength is not gauged by people falling in line, but strength is calculated by showing how you can connect to people, especially those in your own household, inshallah ta'ala, right? And that through this strength, you lead in maintaining the house together, right? You and your spouse, okay? So it's important to know that, inshallah ta'ala, that strength isn't just trying to get people to do what you want them to do, right? But strength is connecting with people, being able to see eye to eye, being able to, connect heart to heart, soul to soul, inshallah ta'ala, that those people who are around you, they love to be around you. They want to be around you. They desire to be around you, and more so in your home, right? Because the worst thing that you can have is that, subhanallah, your wife is like, I can't stand the sight of this man. Like, go to work. You know what I mean? Go out in the garage and go do something, right? SubhanAllah, that you come in and she's like frustrated, or that she comes in or you come in, and that both of you are looking at each other this way, right? You should be pleased when the husband come home. The husband should be pleased to come home to the wife, right? That should be a moment of joy, right? Because that is the moment of peace and security and serenity. We go back to Khadija radiallahu anha, when the Prophet ran home to her, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, cover me, because he knew that the peace and the serenity was in that home with Khadija. She wasn't going to turn him out. She wasn't going to, leave him by himself, right? She was going to support him, and he knew that. And this is why he was able to go home to that, right? And that's important, right? That men know we can go home and we can be emotional with our wives, right? That when men know that they can open up that way to their wives, inshallah, and that they can be vulnerable in that way, inshallah, and that the wife knows that she can be vulnerable and emotional with her husband as well, right? And that understanding and that love is going to be there, inshallah ta'ala. one of the things here now is the issue of showing gratitude, right? So we the wife showing gratitude to the husband, right? It's a right of the husband, right? And again, we look at the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Khadija radiyallahu anha, even though she was wealthier than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? She employed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She had financial advantage over the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but this did not make her arrogant, nor did it make her ungrateful to her husband Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But she remains being an example of kindness and modesty that the Prophet continued to remember throughout his entire life, subhanAllah, right? Allahu Akbar, because we know that whenever, subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ would see her friends, he would think about her. Whenever he would hear the voice of her sister, right, he would think about her, subhanAllah, right? And subhanAllah, this is something to know that she affected the heart of Muhammad. She had a place and a space in his heart and his soul, subhanAllah, right? Allahu Akbar. Right? And Khadija sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she did never address Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as some woman who may have financial, standing over their husbands may do, right? She never said to him, I keep the family financially stable, right? What do you bring to the table, Muhammad? Right? She didn't say that to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm better off without you because I am the one who holds this family down financially, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She never said that to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? She, mashallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, she was still humble and still, mashallah, treated him kindly, mashallah, treated him as, mashallah, you are adding value to this family. Even though, mashallah, I may be the wealthy one, I may be the one who's financially stronger, but you add value, right, that I need to the family, inshallah ta'ala. And we see that this is the way the family structure is supposed to be, right? It is not one of arrogance and one of ungratefulness that, mashallah, and that's misreading the blessings of Allah. Allah blessed you with a career, mashallah, where you make six figures, whatever it may be, mashallah. He didn't bless your husband with that. But maybe he blessed with your husband, mashallah, with sincerity and humbleness, humility, with religion, with faith, right? He just doesn't have the wealth. That was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? He was a person of, mashallah, a godly person, as they say, mashallah, a person connected to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, right? And that means more than any money in the world, right? Allahu Akbar. Because you can have money and be disconnected from Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala altogether, right? So when some women, when empowered with education, right? And this is what we're looking at, when they're empowered with education, when they're empowered with wealth, when they're empowered with financial stability, right? They move on to believe that men are useless in their lives, right? And we kind of get that, women's movement, that feminism type of stuff comes out of this type of thinking, right? And then they think that they can maneuver without a man. And if the man cannot be at her level, then he's worthless, right? If he can't be at my level, if he can't match me, he's worthless, subhanAllah. But you're not looking at the qualities and the traits of that man. And that's what should be looked at, inshallah ta'ala, the qualities and the traits of that man. And we never saw this from Khadija radiyallahu anha, as we mentioned, right? And I commenced this series, right, discussing the roles given to us by the creator of the heavens and the earth, and how roles in Islam, right, cannot be changed because Allah is the one who gave us those roles. Allah gave us the role of the man in the maintaining of the house, right? He's the one in charge, the woman to be the one who, mashallah, manages the house and the children and the life. But we did speak about how some of these things can interlap and interchange, and you can go back to the first lesson to kind of re-listen to that, inshallah ta'ala. But Abdullah ibn Amr, he narrated that the Prophet ﷺ, he said that in a hadith that can be found in Bukhari, Allah does not look at with mercy, right? Allah does not look at a woman who is not grateful to her husband. Subhanallah. Asma bint Zayd, she reported that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ passed by her while she was with other young girls of her age. And he addressed them saying, avoid ingratitude of those who have been favored. She asked him, O Messenger of Allah, who are those, right? What is the ingratitude of those who have been favored? And then he went on to reply saying, one of you might stay with her parents for a long time before marriage. Allah would then grant her a righteous husband and grant her children from him. She would then get angry for some reason, and then when in her moment of anger and in her moment of rage, she turns to her husband and she says, ما رأيت منك خيرا قط. Subhanallah. ما رأيت منك خيرا قط. I've never ever seen anything good from you. Allahu Akbar. Right? And we've heard this before, right? It could be a man, it could be the woman. Right now, we're addressing the issues between a woman and a man, from the woman to the man, that there is no way, brothers and sisters, right? There is no way, brothers and sisters, that this statement should ever come out of the mouth of a spouse. I've never seen anything good from you ever. Why? Because then why did you marry me? Right? If you never saw anything good from me, why did you marry me? Were you insane? Right? Did you lose your mind? Did you have mental issues? Did you not take your pills that day and all of a sudden you came into my life? Right? There was something that caused you to fall in love with me. Right? There was something that caused you to say yes when I offered to marry you. Right? There was something that to cause you to want to have children with me. It was something that caused you to want to live in the same home with me. And then all of a sudden, because something didn't go the way you wanted it to go, right? Or the way you expected it to go, that you say, ما رأيت منك خير قط. I've never seen anything good come from you, right? وَالْعِيَاذُ billah, right? And this, I'm pretty sure sounds familiar, right, to many of you, inshallah ta'ala, who have been in relationships before, right, or are in relationships now. And subhanallah, have we not? And um, when we look at this statement is a strong and severe statement that means that they have never treated you good in your life, right? That's what you're saying. You've never treated me good in my life. My question would then be, right, again, how did you fall in love with them, right? Subhanallah. And this is a statement that the Prophet ﷺ said is a statement of ingratitude, right? And this statement, when we really look at this statement is meant to hurt your spouse down to the core of their souls. You're looking to cause damage, right? Because whatever hurt that you're feeling, you want to be vengeful, and now you don't know any other way, right, to hurt that man except to say, I've never received anything good from you, right? You've never been any good, right? You are worthless. You're nothing, right? Subhanallah. And you're just looking to rip his soul apart, right? Subhanallah. And this should never be the case for the Muslims, right? Husband and wife should never talk to each other that way. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala told us in the Quran, if you're not getting along, right, subhanallah, then you either keep them in kindness or you release them in kindness. You let them go, right? Subhanallah. One of the most beautiful things I saw the other day, just yesterday on Facebook, and I'm not going to mention names, right? A sister, she put up, she says, after, a long time of consideration and talking with my spouse, we've decided that we are not good for each other and we are going to break up. She says, but we started off as friends. We became lovers, right? We became people who loved one another, right? And then in that relationship, we realized that we weren't good for each other. So inshallah ta'ala, we will remain being friends and we remain co-parenting our child with love. So our child will see that their parents are on the same page together again, right? The parents aren't trying to destroy each other and, rip each other apart, unfortunately, right? Because the children suffer at the end of the day, unfortunately, right? And many of us have been in these type of experiences as well, unfortunately, right? So when we look at that, inshallah ta'ala, you don't want to just stick that knife in the back of your spouse, inshallah ta'ala, right? And when you make that statement, you're sticking the knife in, and you're not just sticking the knife and you're turning it and twirling it, right? And wanting it to, mashallah, really make an impact and for them to feel the pain, inshallah ta'ala. And the reality is that the Prophet ﷺ said, man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir, and we mentioned this hadith already, فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. Those who believe in Allah on the last day, either you speak good or keep silent, right? And this is not only with human beings in the outside of your home. This is not just with your friends and with your people at work, with the people at the masjid, but more importantly with the people in your home, in your household, inshallah, that you are not looking to hurt them. You're not looking to cause damage to them, inshallah, right? Because this is not the behavior of a believer, right? The behavior of a believer is one of mercy, one of love, one of compassion, right? And if you don't have anything good to say about that person, you remain quiet, you remain silent, and you move on, inshallah ta'ala. You don't have to remain in that person's life, but you move on, inshallah ta'ala, right? Because even saying things that are true are backbiting and slander, right? Are backbiting, and if they're not true, then they're slander about your spouse. So, this is something that's punishable. If you go to your friends, whether it is the husband or the wife, and oh, she was like this, and oh, he was like that, and oh, this, and oh, that, you become a backbiter or you become a slanderer. And you will be questioned about those things on the day of judgment, right? Just because they were your spouse and you think that they hurt you, it doesn't give you the right to go out and do that to that person as well, right? Allah will judge them, right? Allah will judge them. And this is one of the things that we talked about, right? Where Umar radiallahu anhu, when his wife yelled at him, he remained silent. He took it, right? He took the higher road. He didn't go back into action with her and debating and screaming and fighting, right? He took the higher road, and we need to be people who take the higher road, inshallah ta'ala. Hussein ibn Mahsan, he reported that one of his paternal uncles, one of his paternal aunts, visited the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He asked her, "O woman, do you have a husband?" She replied in the affirmative, saying yes. He asked, "How do you treat him?" So she replied, "As much as I can. I don't deny him any request." And he said, "Check then what is your position with him, because he is either your paradise or your hellfire." Related by Ahmed, right? So meaning, again, and we mentioned it, you're journeying together in this life. They are your other half of your faith. They complete 50% of your faith, inshallah ta'ala, and you fear Allah and the other 50% of your faith, inshallah ta'ala. They are the ones who are journeying and walking with you, trying to help you keep right on that right path so that both of you go into the paradise. Right? But if you're attacking each other and hurting each other and trying to vilify one another, then how is it that, mashallah, you're going to help one another in that path to paradise? It's impossible, right? And we see that when it came to the best of women, that the best of women are those that are kind and good to their husband. Al-Bayhaqi, he reported that Abu al-Sadafi reported that Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, "The best of your women are those who are bearers of many children," right? The Prophet ﷺ, he talked about increasing the ummah, right? Having children. This is why we see the Muslims have so many children. Allahu Akbar, right? So loving, comforting, and being the women who are loving to their husbands, women who are comforting their husbands, women who are tolerant to their husbands, right? Provided that they have taqwa, piety of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And the worst of you women are those who display their charms, meaning that they take their beauty out and they display it into the streets, right? Right? They don't display their beauty at home, but they display it out to the streets for everyone to see. And swagger in their walk, right? Meaning they got a certain walk about themselves so that they can get that attention. Those are hypocrites indeed. None of them will enter paradise except as rare as the crows that have red beaks and legs, right? SubhanAllah, a specific type of crow that is rare, right? So slow down, brothers and sisters. Slow down, sisters, inshallah ta'ala, right? Take a deep breath, inshallah. The Prophet ﷺ is not saying that the best of women are those who are barefoot and pregnant all the time, right? We're not saying that as well, right? But we know that in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ again, right? He said, marry women who are fertile, right? And this doesn't mean that you stay away from those women who may not be fertile, right? Because they as well should have husbands as well, inshallah ta'ala. But it was something about increasing the numbers of believers in the ummah, in the nation of Muhammad sallallahu, right? So we also want to clarify as well that the best of women are those who are loving and comforting. And if we return back to when we spoke about Khadija and her roles, again, she comforted Muhammad during the most difficult moment in his life, okay, when he received the revelation, as we mentioned earlier today. Ibn Abbas reported that Allah's Messenger, sallallahu, he said, should I not tell you of your women who will be in paradise? Right now, my sisters, your ears should be sticking up into the air, right? You should be attentive, right? Because the Prophet sallallahu is saying, shall I not tell you of your women who will be in paradise? And he says, they include a woman who is loving toward her husband, who bears many children for him, who shows him devoted attention. And when he becomes angry, she comes to him and she places her hand in his hand. And she says, I will not taste any sleep until you are happy. Meaning, I'm not going to go to sleep while you are angry with me, right? Subhanallah. And the Messenger of Allah here, he is pointing out this very important point and fact, and that is how we should behave with one another in this state of anger, right? And if you remember in the last class, we discussed that we should never go to sleep angry with one another because we never know what can happen overnight. And here the Prophet is saying that this action of making sure you don't go to sleep angry with one another, it is a characteristic of the woman of paradise. Allahu Akbar. Right? That woman who places her hand in the hand of her husband. And brothers, this is not to say that you can't be the one that places the hand in the hand of your wife if she's the one that's angry with you and say, honey, sweetheart, I'm not going to go to bed, right? Or I'm not going to taste any sleep until you are happy with me, inshallah ta'ala. And let's make sure that we go to sleep pleased and happy with one another because we don't know what can happen overnight. And I don't want to have regret in the morning that I went to sleep with you angry and that perhaps something happens to me or happens to you, subhanAllah. Allahu Akbar, right? And this is beautiful, right? This is a beautiful teaching, brothers and sisters, that brings the hearts together, right? Does this mean, right, again, that it has to only be for the woman? No. This can also be applied to the husbands as well, inshallah ta'ala, because the husbands should want well-being for their spouse, and they should care about the marital relationship that they are in. Okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also made entering paradise easy for our sisters, right? Look at this beautiful hadith, right? And way too often as believers, we kind of make it seem as if paradise is this difficult place to enter, right? This is how we live life sometimes. Paradise is so difficult to get into, right? But look at what the Messenger of Allah said. He reported from Abu Hurairah reported that the Messenger of Allah said, إذا صلت المرأة خمسها وصامت شهرها وحسنت فرجها وأطاعت زوجها قيل لها ادخلي الجنة من أي أبواب الجنة شئت. Subhanallah. He says, if the woman, listen, sisters, if the woman prays her 5 prayers, if the woman prays her 5 prayers, if she fasts the month of Ramadan, if she preserves her chastity, if she obeys her husband, that she will be told on the day of judgment by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, enter paradise through any of its 8 gates. Subhanallah, this hadith can be found in Ibn Hibban, right? Praying 5 times a day, holding on to that, fasting the month of Ramadan, which only comes once a year, right? Praying 5 times a day, fasting Ramadan, which comes once a year, right? Keeping and preserving her chastity, meaning she's not going to be cheating on her husband and sleeping outside with other men and cheating on him, right? And obeying her husband, right? And again, this isn't obedience of, he's the Malik, he is the king, but alhamdulillah, that obedience that mashallah, you should have for one another, inshallah ta'ala, in terms of, things that, don't step outside of the bounds and the lines. This isn't oppression, right? This isn't a tyrant, right? This is, simple stuff, inshallah ta'ala, that you'll find in the marriage between that married couple that love one another. That they will be told, enter paradise through any of its 8 gates that you wish. Subhanallah. That's not difficult, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making it easy so that you can be from the people of paradise. Allahu Akbar, right? And this is so important that we realize that paradise is easy to enter, but we, the human beings, are the ones who make it difficult, right? Because we are the ones who are turning away from these traits and these characteristics and these attributes that we should have, right? So there's also a mindset that, and this is a new mindset, let me say. There is also a new mindset out there that the woman does not have to take care of the home. And we talked about that in the women's rights, right? That this is one of the roles that he gave the wife, but now we're talking about how the man should assist. And that she doesn't have to do anything for her husband, right? But even a woman as noble as the Prophet's daughter, listen to this. The Prophet's daughter, Fatima, radiallahu anha, Allah be pleased with her, found herself responsible to take care of her home and her husband. Ali reported, right, the husband of Fatima, right, reported that his wife Fatima went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam complaining about the bad effect of the stone mill on her hand, right? The stone mill that she had to use in preparing stuff for the house. She complained how it was affecting her hand. So she did not find him. She went to his house and she didn't find that the Prophet ﷺ was present. So she left a message with Aisha radiallahu anha, right? The wife of the Prophet ﷺ, her stepmother, asking him to give her a maid from among the captives, right? That he had recently received. So send me a maid, someone who can come and work for me and who can, mashallah, work for that so that I don't damage my hand. When Aisha radiallahu anha told him sallallahu alaihi wasallam of his daughter's needs, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, went to her house and he entered the home. And when he entered the home, he found her and Ali radiallahu anhu in bed ready to go to sleep, right? They were already preparing themselves to go to bed. Fatima, she went to rise to get out of the bed out of respect for her father, but he told her, stay in bed, relax, right? He sat between them on the bed and he said to her and him, Ali, because they were both present, shall I not direct you to something better than what you have requested from me? Right? She's requesting the handmaid so that her tasks in the home becomes easier. He says, shall I not direct you to something that shall be better than what you requested from me? He says, when you go to bed at night, say Subhanallah 33 times. Say Alhamdulillah 33 times. And say Allahu Akbar 34 times. Indeed, that is better for you than having a servant coming and helping you in your home. And this hadith can be found in Bukhari and Muslim. Subhanallah, right? So going and glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the direction that he directed his wife, his daughter to. This is the daughter of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? He could have said, Subhanallah, this is my daughter, you know what I mean? How her hands are getting messed up. I'm going to go ahead and make her, you know, we have to make her life easy. What's wrong with you, Ali? Right? No, he says, shall I direct you to something that is better? Glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And Ibn Qayyim, he noted that the wife's serving of her husband is a matter about which there is no doubt. He says, it is not correct to differentiate in this regard between a noble and a low-class woman, or between a poor and a rich one. The most noble woman, Fatima, used to serve her husband. She came complaining to her father, Ibn Qayyim says, about the hardship she was facing in this regard, but he did not grant her her wish. Nor do we find Fatima saying to her husband, you know, Dad, for real? You're not going to help me out here? You're going to direct me to something else? I'm your daughter, right? Subhanallah. Why should I serve this man like this? My hands hurt, right? You don't find that Allah's Messenger, sallallahu, right? You don't find her talking to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and responding back to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam like that. But she accepted the advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that dhikr was better for her, remembering Allah was better for her, and she submitted to that advice. Meaning that us as well, we should be people who are submitting to the Quran and to the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Because this is as if we were present with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he was telling us ourselves or directing us ourselves to that type of behavior as well, inshallah ta'ala. But again, brothers, this doesn't mean that your wife is a slave, okay? This doesn't mean that your wife is a slave, right? So obedience, or better yet, serving the husband is done within the capacity of the wife, okay? Within the capacity of the wife, within what she has the ability to do, inshallah ta'ala. It should also only involve things that don't go against what Allah has ordered or things that he prohibited, right? And today, we're going to end, inshallah ta'ala, with a famous narration regarding a mother who in the times of Jahiliyyah, she advised her daughter with beautiful marriage advice, right? And this is the advice that we want to end with today. And this is something that is famous, narrated, right, about this mother in the times of Jahiliyyah and this beautiful advice that she gives to her daughter. Ais binti Auf ibn Muslim al-Shaybani was given in marriage to Amr ibn Hijr, the king of Kinta. Shortly before her wedding, her mother, Umama bint al-Haris, took her aside and she told her, she said, "O daughter of mine, if the advice were to be left off because of virtuousness and the well-mannered, you would be in no need of advice. However, the advice reminds the forgetful. Allah says in the Quran, فَإِنَّ ذِكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, that indeed the reminder benefits the believer, right? And here's this woman telling her daughter, However, the advice reminds the forgetful and guides the wise. And if a woman were to forsake marriage because of her parents' wealth or their fondness of her, you would be the least in need of marriage, right? Because they were wealthy and because they loved her. She says, "Oh, my daughter, you are now departing from the climate where you lived, meaning our home, and the nest where you grew up under our safety, right? Under our guardianship and our watchful eye, to an unfamiliar docile, a domicile and companion, to an unfamiliar home because now you're going to leave the home, right? And the new companion is going to be this man whom you're marrying, right? He's unfamiliar to you. Yes, you've been sitting with him, you've been trying to get to know him, but the reality is that you don't really know each other until you move in together, right? And he says, and by virtue of your husband's custody, he is now a watcher over you, a protector, and a maid over you. So be a maid to him, and he will surely be your servant. Allahu Akbar. You see this beautiful? Be a maid to him, and he will surely be your servant. Be his earth in submission, and he will be your sky in protection. Preserve for him 10 qualities, and they will be a treasure for you. Allahu Akbar. And from those 10 qualities, she says, the first, she said, submit to him by showing contentment in what he gives you, right? In regards to what he gives you. So whatever he gives you, be happy about that, right? Don't say, well, this is all he giving me, right? SubhanAllah, be content in what he gives you. Number two, listen to him and obey him in the best manner that you can. Number three, guard where his eyes look. And this is important, sisters. I have to stress this point. It's important. Guard where his eyes look so that it will not fall on anything ugly from you, right? This can be in terms of your character. This can be in terms of how you present yourself at home. We talked about the woman who, mashallah, she makes herself look good for when she leaves the house, but in the house, she's not doing the same, right? In the house, she's not looking to try to make her husband, mashallah, be, almost drooling over her. That's my wife, right? That's the woman I married. Subhanallah Rabbil Azim. She's as fine today as the day I married her, right? Allahu Akbar, right? And this is a reality, right? We can't, and we talked about this before as well. You can't just wake up and mashallah, you're just walking around the house with your hair all undone. You in your jammies, you know what I mean? You ain't looking right, you know what I mean? You have to be, subhanAllah, keep yourself up, right? Because, and then what happens is there's cause and effects, and there shouldn't be. I'm not saying, and don't take this as a reason or or something that gives permissibility, right? But there's cause and effect. You look torn up at home, and then your husband's eyes wander to the woman who's in the street who's looking good, who has her hair done, who's looking proper, right? And then you're wondering like, yo, why are you looking at her, right? Because at home, you know what I mean? You're not looking your best, right? This leads, unfortunately, man, to all other types of stuff that I don't even want to talk about and mention, right? This is not permissibility, brothers. This is not an excuse for you either, right? Because you shouldn't be doing those things. You're supposed to be guarding your eyes, right? But as well, the wife needs to make sure that she's taking care of herself. This is the mother advising the daughter, right? And the same for the man. The man as well doesn't give, you should be looking good. Your beard should be combed, your hair cut, inshallah ta'ala. You looking good at the house. You smelling good, inshallah ta'ala. So your wife looked at you and she goes, that's my husband, right? 4, guard what his nose smells, right? So that he will not smell from you, but the best of aroma, right? Meaning, mashallah, you put on some nice perfume in the house, inshallah ta'ala. You walk by and he's like, Allahu Akbar, right? Subhanallah. 5, respect his meal times. For the attack of hunger is a cause of his rage, right? Meaning, inshallah ta'ala, make sure that food is prepared for him, inshallah ta'ala. The man is not going hungry. But again, brothers, you also can go ahead and help and cook at times as well, right? 6, respect his sleeping times. For the disturbance of sleep is a cause of annoyance. 7, safeguard his wealth by employing good judgment, right? Meaning use the money in things that are good, inshallah ta'ala, and don't be a spendthrift, right? There are many women that are just spendthrifts. They go out and buy, right? And the man, especially if she's a wife that is at home and being taken care of fully by the man and she doesn't work, And now the man is like, subhanAllah, I'm killing myself, and you're just going out and spending our money on nonsense, right? SubhanAllah, and we've talked about that and how that can bring up many marital issues. 8, care for his children by employing good planning, right? Make sure that the children are being raised in a good environment, inshallah ta'ala. 9, do not disobey any of his commands. Again, commands here doesn't mean that he's ordering you, right? Inshallah ta'ala, all of the time as a tyrant would, but for if you do, it would bring resentment into his heart. And then she says, number 10, do not disclose any of the secrets, for if you do, you would not be secure by his revenge or of his revenge, right? Meaning, again, what happens in the home, keep that in the home. Don't go out and call your girlfriend and call your brother and look, and you think that sometimes I'm trying to get advice, but the reality is that it's just a moment for you to just, subhanAllah, let whatever is in your chest out. And the reality is that you're bad mouthing your husband. And then those people who you bad mouth your husband about, or those people who you bad mouth your wife about, after you guys come together again and are happy once again, because this happens all the time, then those people are looking at you like, man, you're crazy. Like, you was just here the other day talking about how he treats you and what this and this and this and that. And then you're living with him again, right? SubhanAllah. This is why you need to take care of your problems in your home. And if you can't fix those problems in your home, then rather than calling your friend who may not be the one that's going to give you good advice, go out and get therapy, right? Go out and get counseling. Sit with a therapist, sit with a counselor, inshallah ta'ala, a marriage counselor. Get help, right? From someone who is genuinely going to want good for the two of you, inshallah ta'ala. So, these 10 advices, mashallah, from this mother to her daughter are key, inshallah ta'ala, to, bringing forth a good home, inshallah ta'ala. And she says, furthermore, do not display joy when he is worried, nor sadness when he is happy, for they will breed hatred. And remember, my daughter, that the more you please him, the more he will honor you. The more you please him, the more he will honor you. And it goes vice versa. The more you please her, the more she will honor you. And remember that you will not attain what you desire from him unless you give preference to his likes over yours. Same thing on the opposite side. So this narration, again, would probably drive the feminist movement into rage, wanting to march against the Imam and demonstrate, right, for this, the hatred for this type of a narration, and for it to be erased from history, altogether. But for the believing woman, okay, I'm saying this sincerely, for the believing woman, it is advice that is gold and that will lead to a successful marriage, right? We're talking about how to have successful marriages here, inshallah ta'ala, right? And of course, today was Men's Day, but again, this does not mean that everything that we discussed, men can't also implement to bring an even sweeter vibe into that relationship that will be appreciated by his wife. So in conclusion, some other things that will aid in bringing forth a successful marriage are: 1, find ways to always be intimate with one another, okay? Marriages that are suffocating when it comes to intimacy are marriages that people usually end up looking for love somewhere else, right? And this is important, right? We, alhamdulillah, none of us are small children in the room, inshallah ta'ala, we're all adults, right? Intimacy in the relationship is important. And if you are suffocating with intimacy, if you're not getting the love, you're not having relations with one another, inshallah ta'ala, and that is suffocating, right? They are going to go look for it somewhere else. But if that relationship is not suffocating when it comes to intimacy, you're going to see that, mashallah, that person is always looking for you, inshallah ta'ala. You are always looking for them, right? So do not suffocate your spouse when it comes to being intimate with one another. Number 2, avoid being suspicious. Avoid being in suspicious situations that involve other men, because this ruins trust. And once trust is gone, the marriage goes out the door with it, right? And this is also true for men in regard to women, right? Don't involve yourself in something that is going to cause your spouse to have suspicion about you, right? Why were you talking to her? Why did she text you? Why did he call you? Why did he send you an email, right? And, oftentimes, you do that, you're on the phone and you do that, or you change the page. That stuff ruins marriages, right? You need to have an open relationship, or you show up and all of a sudden you put your phone face down because you don't want the messages that pop up to be seen, right? That is stuff that brings suspicion, brothers and sisters, right? You need to be able to know that, look, my wife can have my password, my wife can have my emails, my wife, she can open my phone. It doesn't matter. I have nothing to hide. Nor am I going to look at her like, why are you looking through my phone, right? Bismillah. It's there. Use it. Do what you want with it. No problem. I have nothing to hide, right? You are the love of my life. I'm in love with you. I'm here with you, inshallah ta'ala. I don't want anybody else, right? Number three, avoid talking about your spouse negatively to a friend, as we mentioned already, or one of your relatives. Number four, avoid raising your voices at each other in public, in front of other people, right? This is something as well that just brings shaitan into the picture and destroys households, right? Number five, always be respectful to each other in public or in private, right? They deserve that respect, inshallah ta'ala. This is Islam. Number six, always obey Allah and His Messenger. And this is probably the most important, right? This is probably not, should be number one. I should have put this at number one, not number five. But always obey Allah and His Messenger, whether in public or private, and always place Allah and His Messenger first in your life. Because that relationship from those two individuals that place Allah and His Messenger first in their life, they're going to have a beautiful marriage, inshallah. Number seven, your religion should be the most important part of your relationship with one another. Your deen. You're waking each other up for salat. You're reminding each other to do good. You're calling each other to fasting. You're calling each other to reading the Quran. You're calling each other to give sadaqah, right? This is the relationship between those two spouses. It is a relationship of faith, a relationship of iman, a relationship of love of Allah, love of His Messenger, a relationship of obedience and submission to the Creator of the heavens and earth. Number eight, pray together as a family that prays together, inshallah, stays together, right? And this is something that I have to give to my wife. This is her statement to me all of the time, reminding me, let's pray together, right? And the family that prays together, inshallah ta'ala, is a family that stays together, right? Those hearts are always brought together and they always place that cause in front and before them. And that is the purpose of our life, worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number nine, advise one another with wisdom and gentleness, right? Again, making sure that when you talk to one another, it's with wisdom and gentleness. And then lastly, number 10, don't forget to place your hand in their hands while expressing to one another, I am here for you. I love you. I care about you, right? And your happiness is my next obligation after Allah and His Messenger, right? Obedience to Allah and His Messenger, obedience to my parents, and then you being happy is next in line. And I want to make sure that inshallah ta'ala, I'm carrying out the duty of keeping you happy, all right, with me, inshallah ta'ala, and you being, and me being happy with you, and for us living a life of happiness and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With that, brothers and sisters, inshallah ta'ala, we end tonight's session, and I'll open up the floor. If there are any questions, if there are any comments, inshallah ta'ala, you can either unmic yourself, or inshallah ta'ala, you can go ahead and write it in the chat box as well. And inshallah ta'ala, we can read it from the chat box as well. And you can send it to me in private if that's something that you want to do, inshallah ta'ala, as well. Our brother, he says, Sheikh, can you provide us with a hadith regarding the qualities of the women who will enter Jannah? So thinking you're mentioning, again, the qualities mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we mentioned. If she prays her 5 prayers, if she fasts the month of Ramadan, if she, mashallah, preserves her chastity, if she obeys her husband, that this, inshallah ta'ala, it will be told to her, enter paradise from any of the 8 gates that you wish, inshallah ta'ala. Another quality is the quality of her husband was mad with her or angry with her, inshallah ta'ala, that she puts her hand in his hand, inshallah ta'ala, and she says, I will not go to sleep until you are happy with me, inshallah ta'ala. As well, the women who, mashallah, are loving towards their husbands, the women who bear many children, and women who show their husbands devoted attention, inshallah ta'ala. These are from some of the traits and the characteristics of the women of paradise, inshallah ta'ala. And the hadith is here, inshallah ta'ala. Sumayya, she placed the hadith here, alhamdulillah, with its source and its authenticity that, mashallah, checked by Sheikh Al-Albani. Barakallahu fiki for that. Any questions, inshallah? Saida, she says, is tazkiyah important premarital and during the marriage, inshallah ta'ala. Tazkiyah is something that is always of great importance, inshallah ta'ala, right? Tazkiyah is that, mashallah, that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are always in need of, right? That's the spirituality that we should all be looking for, inshallah ta'ala. And of course, pre-marriage, it's important. Why? Because before you get married, you need to have that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to be connected and purifying yourself, right? The purification of the soul, the purification of the heart, the purification of the mind, right? All of these are important parts, right? For you, first and foremost, right? Because you are going to stand in front of Allah by yourself to be questioned over your deeds, over your actions. And then when you come into the marriage, that continuation of purification and tazkiyah in your life and in the marriage also holds great importance, inshallah ta'ala. Why? Because now you're moving as a unit, right? And when you move as a unit, inshallah ta'ala, and you both are on the same page, then inshallah ta'ala, you are moving in the right direction. So yes, it's definitely important before marriage, right? It's important before marriage, absolutely, positively. Why? Because it involves you and your relationship with your creator. And then after marriage, inshallah ta'ala, it's important because it involves the family's relationship with the creator, you and your spouse, and then you and your children and your family as a whole, inshallah ta'ala, right? It is a household affair, inshallah ta'ala. Wa iyak, akhi Umar. May Allah bless you, akhi. Sister Hiba, she put, is prenuptial agreement obligatory before marriage? So if there's a prenup, inshallah ta'ala, then that should be written up at the time of the contract. That should be written up at the time of the contract, inshallah ta'ala, before you get married. And this is why, if you go to our marriage course, the first marriage course that we did, right, before this one, there's 10 sessions in that first marriage course. We talk about all of these different things, inshallah. I talk about these things and how it's important to make sure that you are putting together a marriage contract, you know, what it is that you want in the marriage contract. Both of you guys are looking at that stuff, inshallah ta'ala, and making sure that you are implementing and getting that stuff signed and agreed to before you get married, inshallah ta'ala. So inshallah, yes, inshallah. And if you want, inshallah ta'ala, I have the session here. I'll actually copy and paste for you where you can actually find that first marriage course. So that's the link for our YouTube page, and you'll find the 10 sessions there, inshallah ta'ala, with those classes, inshallah ta'ala. Dowry and mahar is the same as well, with one exception. So dowry and mahar, right, naturally you would give it at the time of the contract, and before you actually get married. One of the responsibilities of the imam is to make sure that the dowry has been handed over to the wife, inshallah ta'ala. But let's say now if the man is not a wealthy man, and he's a blue collar worker, but he has agreed to give his wife a specific dowry, inshallah ta'ala. But he can't give it to her in that moment, in that instance, inshallah. But she agrees that you can go ahead and give it to me in portions out. You know, you can give me so much after 6 months, and then the third part after a year, and after a year and a half, you give me the final part, inshallah ta'ala. And they sign off on that in the contract, inshallah ta'ala. They both agree to that, then that is acceptable as well, right? And now that is a right that she has over him, right? Once they become married, it's not that he says, okay, well, khalas, honey, we married already. Don't worry about the dowry. You know, khalas, you know, we're in love, we're married, we're living together. No, that is her right, right? So that is still held on your neck as a responsibility for you to have to give to her, inshallah ta'ala. But normally, the dowry would be given before the marriage, inshallah ta'ala, you know, when the contract is being drawn up, inshallah. Allah ta'ala knows best. Anyone else? And feel free to use the mic. I know Michael, I think you opened your mic before. I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my beloved brothers and sisters. You mentioned a very key point at the end of your sermon of the class there, where you said that you're in love with your wife as I am in love with my wife, and there's a difference between being in love with someone and loving someone. And when you're in love with someone, you see no from that person. I mean, I see I've seen my wife, my wife at her worst. Like in the morning time, she works from home. And there are many times where she doesn't make her hair up. She doesn't change her clothes. She stays in her jammies and vice versa. And, I'm saying, and we look at each other like, hey, that's the most beautiful person I've seen in my life. So, there's a difference between being in love with someone and loving someone. And then you also mentioned earlier, what you say to a person, because words are very hurtful, words are damaging, it has a cause and effect. If you tell somebody, I've never had, I've never gotten anything, like I've never seen anything good come out of you, or vice versa. The man saying it to the wife, or the wife saying it to the man, it has its cause and it has a, its effect. And that's when, Shaitan starts to work his magic. He starts to do his, his deed. That's when he starts to work. You start thinking, well, maybe, this person talks to me a certain way at work, and, maybe she talks to me as, so, watching what you say is very, very important. I mean, if you feel a certain way, if you're upset, talk it out as two human beings, just talk it out, let her know how you feel, let her know how she feels, and vice versa. And, just, settle your differences. But for you to come out, a certain way, or for her to come out a certain way, these words have scars, and, and what comes out of it is not, is not good. So, respecting one another, is very, very important. Watching what you say to your wife or to your spouse, and vice versa. We married, we fell in love, or we love them, and, we married them. So, if you reach that point where you no longer feel the same way, instead of, disrespecting one another, just come to a conclusion and just, part your ways, and that's it, as opposed to, disrespecting one another. And thirdly, in a marriage, there should be balance. We live in a time where women have career jobs, not just jobs, but career jobs. We have, the vice president as a woman, the school's chancellor is a woman. We have women who have career jobs, so they work just as hard as the man. So at home, we share, it's equal at home. She cooks. I'm not much of, I don't cook very much. I'm not much of a cook. That's not my field of expertise, but I do other things in the house to help out. I do the dishes, I pull out the garbage, I do the laundry, I help with the shopping. We do, we help each other out. There has to be a balance in order for your marriage to be successful. If there's no balance, then, it's not going to work. She's going to feel a certain way. She's going to feel like she's doing too much, and you're doing nothing. You're just sitting back, and yeah, so that's it.
Mashallah. No, beautiful advice, Michael. Mashallah, beautiful advice. And just to keep recap the three advices that Michael gave, right? Give your spouse a pass every now and then, right? If you wake up in the morning and your spouse she has a lazy day, or he has a lazy day, right? You're gonna give each other the pass. You know what I mean? Alhamdulillah, that's my spouse. Alhamdulillah, right? I love her. She she ain't got it together today, or he ain't got it together today. No problem, inshallah, right? But again, always remembering that shouldn't be a consistent process, right? That shouldn't be a consistent, practice that, we just, that's how we are at home, right? But we should always want to gauge each other's interest, and that, mashallah, we're looking at each other and always remember why we fell in love with each other, not only the traits and the characteristics, but also, when we saw each other, there was a moment that, man, Allahu Akbar, I like the way she looks, I like the way he looks, right? Second, the hurtful words, right? SubhanAllah, some words, when you damage some people, some scars never heal, right? He says scars, right? Which is important, right? And then the third, inshallah ta'ala, the balance in the home, right? And that's key. Balance in the home and helping each other out, alhamdulillah. And I think we've emphasized that a lot throughout this course, inshallah, so far, that, there should be that balance where you help each other out, inshallah, to the home. Jazakallah khair for those three great points, Michael. May Allah reward you for that. I mean, Sister Hiba, inshallah, the floor is yours.
Hey, so yeah, what Brother Michael said was really great. And I want to rehash on that because I found earlier on Instagram, a mother posting like a quote. It's not exactly a quote. It's more like somewhere between a quote and picture, stating that society. Well, I'm just gonna paraphrase what she was trying to say. Society sees. If society, let me see. If society sees fathers are homes are messy, then, I mean, if fathers are messy, their homes are messy, then that's it. But then if the mother is messy, then there's something wrong with the mother. So, I mean, I'm single right now, and mind you, this is coming from a mother living in the Midwest or from somewhere here in the United States. And I don't think they're from a Muslim community or anything. So now that I'm single, I'm worried about come to the point thinking or feeling that way if I ever become a mom. So what would be your advice, or what's your opinion on this?
No, and of course, man, it's very important that, we don't project and give off negative vibes, especially when we have children, right? Because then the last thing our children want to do is like, yo, I never want to get married in my life, right? Why would I want to be involved in that? It's a mess. Look at my parents and, look at their relationship, and I'm surrounded by these people and all this negativity. And, subhanAllah, marriage is beautiful, right? As Michael mentioned, marriage is something beautiful. It's amazing. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed it here, and made it amazing. He told us, as we said before, in the first class, he told us that in it you find tranquility, you find mawadda, you find rahmah, you find love, and you find mercy, right? Alhamdulillah, you find these emotions that are, are and these feelings that are great, Allahu Akbar, that, make you happy, and make you joyful, make you content. And, sometimes you have the opposite. Sometimes you may feel down or whatever have you, but in those initial phases when you're falling in love, all of that is amazing. So when you have your first child, it's amazing, and you look at them and it's like, Allahu Akbar, Allah gave me this little life, right? SubhanAllah. But we always need to remember that, Alhamdulillah, we are those examples, right? The Prophet is that example for us. We are those examples in our home. We are those examples in our communities, right? Because the same thing in our communities, we should be setting that example, for other people, because maybe people don't have a good example to look at home. They're going to look somewhere else, inshallah ta'ala. And, our single sisters and our single brothers as well, they can't just be like, oh my God, it's hopeless. I'm never going to find me a good man. You know what I mean? All these men are worthless. Or the men saying, we're doomed. We're never going to find a good woman. And sometimes we find brothers mentioning this and saying this, or sisters saying this, inshallah ta'ala. And I don't believe it to be a statement of fact, right? I believe that there's always someone out there for everybody, right? Mashallah, that other half of you is out there waiting for you, inshallah ta'ala. Allah has them there for you, inshallah ta'ala. And it can be, it's going to be something beautiful and spectacular. And it's just about you getting there and finding that person, inshallah ta'ala. But we should be demonstrating the positive sides of these things, inshallah ta'ala, not, the negative side, alhamdulillah. And if the negative sides come, we kind of help people with, as we're doing in these courses, how do you maneuver past those things, inshallah, so that you can stay on the positive side of things, inshallah ta'ala. So that's important, inshallah. Anyone else in these last minutes? Jazakallah khair, Sister Heba, mashallah, barakallah feek.
Yeah, and as a man, sometimes men have this machismo thing going on, that they don't feel like they have to apologize or apologize. It's okay to apologize. There's nothing wrong with it. Trust me. Okay, apologize. If you know that you did wrong, apologize. It's as simple as that. You did wrong, honey. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I was out of line. I apologize. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not a machismo thing. It's not. This is 2021, 2022. Those days are over with. That machismo thing, hang it up. Apologize to your wife, and you'll see it. It's okay.
I wasn't a thing from the time of the Prophet either, mashallah. except with the ignorant, right? Alhamdulillah, the Prophet came to show us better than that. Alhamdulillah. Don't walk around saying I'm a man, right? Men don't apologize, men don't cry, men don't feel emotional, right? No, alhamdulillah,
no.
Men feel all of those things, alhamdulillah, inshallah. And real men feel those things, inshallah ta'ala, alhamdulillah. I know we don't want to demonstrate it because we feel that it shows weakness and vulnerability. It does show vulnerability, alhamdulillah, but I think a good pious woman, a believing woman who sees that vulnerability, she just knows that her husband exposes vulnerability to her because he loves her. And the same on the opposite side, a woman who exposes her vulnerability to her man and her husband is, mashallah, the husband is seeing that and should appreciate that she has opened up to me, right? And that means a lot, right? That means that, we are on the next level, right? They're not hiding those feelings and keeping them to themselves anymore, but mashallah, they have opened up and we've gone to the next level in our relationship where we can be vulnerable with one another, and we're not going to take advantage of each other. That's what Michael was saying. Right? We're not going to take advantage of our vulnerabilities, inshallah ta'ala, but alhamdulillah, we're going to help each other in those moments where we feel most vulnerable, inshallah. Anyone else, inshallah ta'ala? We've reached 8:06. I don't want to keep you longer than expected. But is there any last final comments or statements, corrections? Inshallah. Sister Usmaya, she says, ultimately, everything we do should be for Allah's sake, right? It should be seeking the pleasure of Allah, seeking that Allah is content and happy with us, inshallah ta'ala. And if we're living like that, inshallah ta'ala, and we're conscious, right? This is what taqwa means. We're being God conscious, right? In everything that we do, then inshallah ta'ala, we'll be living right and we'll be looking to do things right with our spouse, inshallah ta'ala, who should be our better half. With that, inshallah, brothers and sisters, inshallah, if there's no other comments, final statements, questions, she added. And if we look at it that way, then it should be easier to do what our spouses ask of us, inshallah ta'ala. Yes, inshallah, agreed. That if we look at it, that we're looking to please Allah, right? And our spouse as well, right? Inshallah ta'ala, but that we're looking to please Allah ultimately at first in those requests that are made from us, then inshallah ta'ala, it becomes easier for us to say, yes, honey, inshallah ta'ala, I'm here to help you and do whatever it is that you need, inshallah ta'ala. Right? MashaAllah. Jazakillahu khair, Sumayya, for that beautiful advice and addition, inshallah ta'ala. Khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all, brothers and sisters. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to have beautiful marriages, mashallah, that last long. May our kids see beautiful marriages from us. And for those people who are struggling in their marriage, may Allah allow you to find the help that you need in that marriage, inshallah, to be able to repair whatever damage may be there or whatever hurt you may be going through. And if you're not able to repair it, then that you may Allah make it easy for you to split and leave one another, inshallah ta'ala, still based with kindness, with mercy, with compassion for one another. And again, that is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And not for the sake of anyone else, but doing it to earn the pleasure of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And may Allah make us from those righteous servants. Ameen. Wajazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Again, a reminder for all of you here, we read the Quran together every morning from 7:30 to 8 using the same link for any of you who would like to join us in the English language. And then tomorrow we have our Sirah class in the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have Brother Omar presenting tomorrow night, and he will be presenting chapter number 8, inshallah ta'ala, summary of chapter number 8. Khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you all.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.